A warm California greeting to all the delegates and attendees with us tonight. My name is Mike Madrid. I'm here today to speak to you as an American, as a conservative, and as a Hispanic, grandson of immigrants from both Mexico and New Mexico. And it's my honor to be with you talking about what has really been the passion and the work of my lifetime. Over the course of the past 3 decades, growing up in the Southwest, I've seen firsthand the demographic changes that are really a precursor of what is likely to change America. America is changing. We're fundamentally going to be a different people, a different complexion, a different look, previous and different than any other generation in the history of our country. In fact, for the vast majority of you, those changes may be a little bit disruptive. This will be the first generation of Americans born of European ancestry, a majority of this country leaving out America to a majority of non-European ancestry. This challenge is not only an American challenge, it's a conservative challenge. And specifically, it's a challenge to our Republican Party. To many of you younger listeners, this probably doesn't strike you as very odd. It's the America you have always known. But to some of our older listeners, this might sound like a loss of epic proportions. And yes, while America is changing, we have always changed. Our strength has been found in remaining constant, in not remaining stagnant, and not being flat. Our dynamism is that strength, and our resiliency is a product of that change. But one thing that is unchanging and has always unchanged has been our principles, our core values, the ability to stay true to the ideals of our founders, ideas of what we could be, although maybe that wasn't always the reality, and what we aspired to be. Through social change, through global depressions, through world wars, and even through pandemic, it's always been part of the American character to adapt to societal changes while holding true to our principles and our values. And foundational to that, of course, is the idea that our rights, our inalienable rights, our God-given rights are bestowed upon every one of us, all of us equally as children of God. Ronald Reagan spoke to us about that shining city on a hill being a magnet for all peoples coming to this country. But remember that when he was talking about that city, he talked about it being on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. And he referenced most specifically the fact that if there had to be walls around that city, the walls would have doors, and those doors were opened to anyone with the will and the hearts to get here. The immigrant story, the story of the refugee, is the American story. Not simply because it's good mythology or a good narrative about who we are, but in many ways, it's the immigrant experience, those looking for a better life that reinvigorate the American dream, that add a new energy for a new generation of Americans, to remind those that have been here who we are, who we aspire to be, and what our aspirations must continue to be as Americans to continue this American experiment. Why then do so many of our fellow Americans fear the immigrant? Why do so many deny the refugee? When did we lose confidence in ourselves as conservatives and as Americans that we believed it possible to lose our freedom, our principles, our values to those desperately seeking to be like us, to be American? Why is this generation of Americans so fearful when those that preceded it were so strong? I'm reminded, of course, of Abraham Lincoln, who 160 years ago, this year, in a speech at Cooper Union in New York City, launched the Republican Party, launched a man in his presidency, and a cause and a social movement that changed the world. The Republican Party, in many ways, was the first political party in the United States formed for racial justice. Racial justice was our founding principle. The Republican Party was literally created to say that Black equality mattered, the pursuit of happiness mattered, that for Blacks, liberty mattered, that Black lives mattered. That is our founding. That is our principle. That is our core. And foundationally and fundamentally, the essence of that speech that launched the Republican Party as a national force that changed the course of history was about the idea that it is right. What is morally right is what makes for might. And I question today if the conservative movement and the Republican Party share that same common commitment. Make no mistake, friends, we are at a moment where conservatism and republicanism are at loggerheads. They are no longer defined under the umbrella of the same party. It is principle that must guide us. It is the values we must return to, the spirit, the optimism, and the God given bestowed rights of who we are as a people that must guide us. The roadmap is clear. We've had them for 244 years. Let us recommit to that. Let us recommit to that principle. Let us focus again on being a party of Lincoln, a party of equality, a party of values, a party of justice, and a party of principle. Thank you.